Hello everyone, welcome to Indian Economy by Aman Soni. In today's news hour, we would be discussing the important articles related to economy from the Hindu newspaper. In page 1, there is a mention of news related economy. We'll look at it in the business page. In this editorial, talks about the corporate governance structure in the regulatory bodies. In the previous news hours, we have discussed about the alleged irregularities in the NSE. Now, Ms. Ramakrishnan has been arrested by the CBI, and there is also a news about the financial scam that has taken place previously. Few years back, there was an allegation that some of the brokers of the NSE got early access to the financial data, and because of this, they were profiteering. At that point of time, the regulator SEBI imposed a fine on the NSE for that, and the issue got resolved. So the article says that the colocation services offered by NSE to some of the brokers who pay a premium price, and they get a market information at a faster rate, and out of all this, some of the brokers got illegal access to the data, backup data, because of which they were making the trades faster and they were profiting from it. The article says that even legally allowing players to get information as compared to the normal retail investor is not right, because just because you have deep pockets and you are rich, and if you are a big investing firm, you would be able to afford that premium access, which the normal small retail investor won't be able to afford. And this entire thing of allowing early access based on a fee is against the market philosophy of it being open. And the article says that even though the case was found out in 2016 and the CBI knew about it in 2018, the investigation is not happening at a faster pace. So now, because the investigation has once again come into the light, deterrent action should be taken that this thing won't repeat in the future, and the review checks and balances for the governance structures have to be put in place in the regulatory system. This article discusses about the informal workforce and how it is related to child care. Today is International Women's Day, and the theme for today's day is Gender Equality Today for a Sustainable Tomorrow. A 2018 study by the International Labour Organization says that almost 95% of India's working women work in the informal sector. And we know the negatives of the informal sector, that they are low paying, the working conditions are harsh, there is no social protection schemes. And previously the government had amended the Maternity Benefit Act 2017 and increased the paid maternity leave for women to almost 26 weeks, and they also got an option to work from home after that period. And the creche is a place where the children are taken care of. It is like a daycare facility. So the facility was mandated for the companies employing establishments employing more than 50 women workers. So the article says even though the act was bought, the creche facility was mandated, and the duration of the paid maternity leave was increased, all the benefits of this scheme go only to the 5% of the workforce who are in the formal sector, and majority 95% are in the informal sector, and they don't get any benefits out of this scheme, this act. And the article says early childhood care and support for the children of the informal workers is very much important. For that we need to take 3 steps. And what are those 3 steps? We'll see. One is expanding the ICDS. ICDS is the Integrated Child Development Services scheme. The Anganwadi is where the childhood care would be given for the people, for the children. And the article says the maternity and the nutritional security provided under the Anganwadis, it needs to be increased, because currently there are fixed hours for the Anganwadis, maybe some 9 to 6, and if we can increase the time of it, women would be more women would be able to work. And the nutritional security that they provide under the Anganwadi, they are not enough, and that also needs to be increased. And the article also says that all this means that increasing the burden on the already underpaid and burden the Anganwadi workers. So we need to improve the infrastructure for the Anganwadi workers also. And in the National Krishi scheme, there is not much government funding happening. So we need to go for a network of public crèches, public child care system, wherein now only those establishments with 50 or more workers are providing creche facilities. We should have a public creche facilities in a cluster where the businesses are provided, so that the women would be able to go meet the child few times in a day and take care of the child. And most of the times what happens, because this majority of the women work in the informal labor sector, and taking a care of a child involves financial cost, because of which the women won't have adequate rest even after the delivery of the baby, so they would soon go back to the working, so they won't get the enough rest. So in order to meet that, in the National Food Security Act, the maternity benefits were provided to women, one time cash payment of 6,000. But there was a flip side for this, because the Pradhan Mantri Matru Vandana Yojana, which was started to implement this provision, it limited the amount to 5,000, and it gave the benefit only to the firstborn child. So for a person who is having a second baby, this benefit won't be available. So in order to mitigate this loss, certain states like the Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, Gujarat, Chhattisgarh, they all try to bridge the gap, coverage gap, by having their own schemes at the state level and providing more benefits. For example, the scheme in Tamil Nadu, it promises around 18,000 rupees in cash and kind for 2 births. And the article says that the cash transfer of 5,000 which are made under the Matru Vandana Yojana is not enough, because in order to meet the cost of the nutrition of a baby, we need to provide at least some 6 months of the wage that the informal workers are losing. And the inflated adjusted amount made by the NFSA itself is around coming to around 9,500 rupees. So giving just 5,000 rupees is very less. And lack of affordable and quality healthcare services increase the burden on the women workers, and it will lead to increase in the gender inequality. So if we have to reduce that, we need to provide quality and affordable childcare services to the children of even the informal workers. And we need to make this by making it an employment benefit and making it as a public good. In the open editorial page, the article talks about the potential of the female workforce. Now during the pandemic, we all saw that the large scale adaptation of digital and smartphone technologies happened because from home, and a new way of working called the gig economy, where you just work for the task that is given on the online platform, emerged. And this gave the flexibility and freelancing facility for the people working, because you could sit at the comfort of your home, and you could still have a part-time job. And this especially will help women, because at the same time a woman can manage the household work and the job, a part-time job, and you don't need to go to the workplace, you can work from the comfort of your house. So the gig economy is more beneficial to the women who are skilled and into the digital world. So for women to take advantages of these opportunities, they need to be provided education, skilling, and access to digital technology. The participation of women in the workforce in India has dropped from almost 32% in 2005 to 21% in 2019. This is a matter of concern, and the female labor force participation rate of women in India is lowest among the BRICS countries. And why is female labor force participation important? Because if half of the population is not working and not gainfully employed in the economy, the GDP and the economic growth would also be less. And in order to achieve the economic growth and to promote inclusive growth and finally to achieve the sustainable development growth, the more and more women have to come into the workforce. And the demographic dividend has to be taken advantage of. India's population is among the lowest in the world. The median age of Indians is around 29 years. So, but the women are not being helped because of this, because there are various economic and social factors which inhibit the women from coming to the workforce. This need to be addressed. That's the main contention of the article. Certain sectors have potential to provide more jobs to women, and in India those are the healthcare and educational sectors, and those sectors which are more related to the care, unlike manufacturing sectors wherein the new technology would disrupt the labor intensive process, and adoption of new technology would mean that less and less number of labor would be needed. In the care intensive sectors where the healthcare and education, it is still the labor intensive. So more and more women who are suitable for this sector should be employed, and for that the government should make investments into better health and care facilities. And this gig economy now offers a platform for women for having innovative solutions in different sectors like the transport, retail, personal and home care. Digital platforms are increasing because of the increase in access to internet and the access to smartphones, and India is those countries which have one of the lowest costs of internet. The government is also going for the Digital India campaign where it will increase the access to the everyone, and we need to make the best opportunity and allow the women to take the advantage of the gig economy. But the internet access to women compared to the men is low. There was a report called the Mobile Gender Gap Report, and it shows that only 25% of the women own smartphones in India, whereas almost 41% of the men had smartphones in 2020. So this shows not just in other aspects, even when it comes to owning smartphones and access to the internet, the women are in the back step. So we need to increase this so that the women would be able to take the advantage of gig economy, and they can also contribute to the growth of the economy. Under cooperative federalism, the article concludes that all the states should come together. There should be dialogue between various stakeholders, and the suitable policies have to be taken to expand the care services and the gig and platform sectors so that the aggregate demand in the economy would be increased and the long-term economic growth would increase, and this will also lead to gender equality and the societal well-being, because if half of the population is improved, it would automatically mean that the well-being of the society is improved. In the business page, the article talks about how the oil and nickel prices rising because of the supply chain disruptions from Ukraine-Russia conflict. We have discussed that the oil prices are going to be increased and it would have impact on the retail inflation in India, and in very soon we would see that the price of oil and petrol and diesel would increase in India. Now certain other metals like nickel are increasing because Russia is the third largest nickel producer and supplies from Russia is getting disrupted, and other metals which are used in the production of catalytic converters which are used in automobiles, Russia accounts for almost 40% of the global production, and even those items the supply is disrupted and the price is going to increase. As discussed, the Sensex is falling because of the fluctuations in the crude oil prices. We discussed that the increase in the crude oil prices mean that we have to pay more under our import bill, the government has to pay more, so it has to borrow, so the fiscal deficit will increase. So because it is paying more in the current fiscal year, the current account deficit is also increasing. Here we need to see the trend of the exports rise in food exports, and under the food exports, the majority of the rise is happening in certain sectors like the meat, dairy and poultry products. Here just need the headlines. In the explainer page, there is an article about the Financial Action Task Force. Recently, the Pakistan has been retained in the grey list, and UAE has been added to the list, and Zambia has been removed from the list. So, what is FATF? FATF is an international watchdog for financial crimes. It is an intergovernmental body. It is main mandate is to see to that the countries don't involve in money laundering and providing terror financing. It was established at the G7 summit in Paris in 1989, and at that time countries had growing concerns about money laundering activities and the money being used to the illegal money being used to laundered into terror financing. And after the 9/11 attacks in the USA, the FATF also added terror financing as its main focus area. And in 2012, it also broadened to increase the include the restrictions of funds to the weapons of mass destruction. Currently, FATF has 39 members, and the decision-making body of the FATF is called the plenary, which meets 3 times a year, and it takes decisions, and it decides whether to keep the countries in the blacklist or the grey list. So how does FATF works? The FATF sets certain recommendations and standards for countries to achieve, and achieving that would mean that the access to money laundering and terror financing would be reduced. So it would give a kind of a to-do list, a checklist, things that the country has to follow. And if a certain country doesn't follow them, it would be put under two lists. One is the grey list and the other is the black list. So the countries which are under the grey list, they are those countries which are actively working to achieve the targets given by the FATF, but they have not completed it. And the countries in the blacklist are those countries which are called the high risk jurisdictions. Those countries are not following the targets given by the FATF to reduce the money laundering and terror financing. And the other members and non-members of FATF would be called upon to provide due diligence against those countries, and in rarest of the rare cases, even financial sanctions would be imposed on those countries. Currently, two countries are there in the blacklist of FATF, that is the North Korea and Iran. And what is the impact of keeping the countries in these two lists? If you are put under the list, it means that you are not taking enough steps to control the money laundering and terror financing. So it would affect the way you raise money for your country through the international financial institutions. The financial institutions like IMF, the Asian Development Bank and other global institutions, they won't be ready to give you loans. And it would also affect the capital flows like the FDI and FPI, because if the investors feel that there is no stable economy within your country, there is no stable polity, and your government is not taking enough steps to reduce the money laundering, the investors won't be feeling safe to invest into your country. So it would also affect the capital flows into the country. And why Pakistan is on the grey list? Pakistan has been in the grey list since almost 2008, and around 2009 it began to cooperate with the regional level body, the Asia Pacific Group, which is like the FATF. And the country at that time, it came up with a permanent legislation against money laundering, because of which it was removed under the grey list in 2015. But again in 2018 it came back into the grey list because it didn't take enough steps to restrict the terror financing to the various terrorist groups which are banned by the global institutions. And in 2019, Pakistan almost uh, only achieved 5 tasks out of the 27 tasks given by the FATF. So FATF threatened Pakistan to put under the blacklist. Then Pakistan almost achieved 26 of it out of the 27 by 2021. So Pakistan was retained under the grey list. And in June 2021 again, another 7-point action plan was given to Pakistan to be achieved. Now Pakistan has to achieve this target, and Pakistan recently has said that it has achieved 32 of the 34 action items. If it achieves everything, it will be removed out of the grey list. That's about this article. Thank you so much.